Eden Kaz here with Just Be, and we are about to take a spiritual boom. We are at an unprecedented time in human history where we are transitioning from 3D to 5D within the great spiritual awakening. This video and audio podcast is the place for you to find your truth beyond politics, your sovereignty, your voice. Let's kick up your vibration now. By the way, each episode ends with the Just Be practice to do just that. And as we begin the show, just to know a little bit more about me, I'm a soul realignment specialist, meditation master, and dimensional healer. Learn more, and there's merch also at EdenJustBe.com. Let's get this party started. Chandler, you believe that you're doing this with me?
I can't. This is so exciting.
So first screen capture, could it be an exciting? Ah! Okay, let's do one more. You ready?
Well, same thing.
Yeah. I love that. I've never done one with my hand up. Can I do that too? Here we go. Do it again. Oof. I think we got some good ones there.
Put it out.
Okay. Eden, Just Be, Spiritual Boom, in association with the Grassroots Warriors Network. Welcome, client and dear friend, Chandler Hollis. How you doing today?
So great. How are you?
I'm great. Thank you. I'm so excited to have you on the show. All right. So as I give a nod, we are going, not potentially, we're going to discuss alopecia, your process, the amazing growth on all levels that are happening for you now. And I want to take this moment to extend this heartfelt graciousness or gratitude for you coming on the show and sharing what I consider a very intimate story and sharing yourself with everybody. And I feel this is really important. So thank you so much.
Absolutely.
Okay.
Thank you for the opportunity. It's something I definitely never thought I'd do.
And is this your first podcast?
Oh yeah.
Heck yeah. Heck yeah, girl. All right. Okay. So a couple of things I want to talk about before I'm going to read Chandler's bio. This week, which we are recording, which knowing that our shows are not they come out in 2 weeks. So the week of September the 8th. So please go back and see this. I love all of my shows, yet I feel like right now this is really important about Gold IRA scams. So I'm going to talk about this a lot because I am in one. Especially, so I'm very affected by this. So in the awakened community, I think this is very big with a lot of you guys that taking your IRAs and investing them in precious metals is really good. Yet who you go with is so important. And I realized that I did not really go with with companies of integrity. So in our show that we publish, we don't name names, yet Kevin Hauser, who is one of the gentlemen on there, goes over 5 warning signs at the end of the show, which I think are so great. So if you have concerns about your IRA, your Gold IRA, pretty much in talking with Kevin, most of the companies are not so good. And they're with Miles Franklin, and I have such trust with them because, okay, the long story, Glenn Meter, who was on my show with Privacy Academy, talked about Gold IRA scams, connected me with Kevin. And the intention with this wasn't to transfer my IRA to Miles Franklin. It was just to help me, regardless of what I did. So I personally have been going through this experience, and they have such integrity. So now I'm on tier 2 of a 3-tier process. And I also want to bring this up to you guys. I ended up going with some of the larger companies. If you go with smaller, there can be some challenges with that. But even in this, I have made a good bit of money. It's been really neat to go through this because initially, Chandler, I was like, oh my God, Gold IRA scams. For a second, I got really nervous. And then I was like, okay, everything works out for you, girl. Do not worry. God's got your back. You're connected to Glenn and you're connected to Kevin and all of this. And then to discover as I'm liquidating that I've made good bucks. And now I'm like, if I go with a company that has integrity, what's going to happen? So, yeah, good stuff. Then, Chandler, are you cool hanging for just a minute?
Oh, yeah.
Okay. So sweet. All right. And I wanted to give a nod to the sacred relationship that I'm in, and Chandler actually knows a good bit. about that. We are 7 months now. And as you guys know, I talk about it, briefly on pretty much on each show, that there are major ups and downs in a really good spot right now. And to be forthright, we have consummated the relationship, which that was at about six months around there. And I really encourage anyone who is willing to step into a different relationship, one that goes from the heart, to really take your time with intimacy, because sexuality and sex can cloud so many things, and figuring out what it means to you and how important it is to you. And it is such a gift. And being in that mindset to go there, it's just so good. It's so good. And also to encourage men and women going into these relationships now, going from the heart, which it means what might appear in front of you is not what you're thinking it is. But if you feel the heart, there's something about that is truth, that is divine, that you can't mess up within that. So yeah, I feel, okay, let me see if I can word this. I feel so good that I had the guts to do it. And it is paying off in spades. Okay, for him and for me, in terms of finding my voice, figuring out more of who I am. And y'all know I spent a long time figuring that out. Yet when there's a person in front of you, it's a whole other level of that. So I am, regardless of what happens to it, I am so blessed in having him come into my life, having him challenge me. And girl, he is no yes man. And I don't want a yes man. I don't someone who kowtows to me. And he does not at all, which is good. Okay, let me read about you now. Thank you so much for letting me share these two
Absolutely.
wonderful
I'm
things.
glad you did.
Thank
And
you.
He's a good guy.
Thank you. Yeah, Chandler's met him. Yeah, he's getting better and better all the time. Okay, I'm going to pretend like I'm Chandler. I'm Chandler, a gentle-hearted empath whose journey with alopecia has taught me resilience, self-acceptance, and the courage to stand fully in my truth. Because of alopecia, image was always a major theme in my life. I wore a wig for 22 years. How old are you now?
32.
32. Hiding my truest self. Okay, let me fold this for a minute. In March of this year, I finally ditched the wig, your wording, ditched the wig, after realizing something had to change. I couldn't even look at myself in the mirror with it on, and seeing photos of me felt even worse. Since then, I focused deeply on my healing and awakening journey, uncovering layers of childhood trauma I had long suppressed. It's been an incredible experiencing watching my hair return little by little as I dive deeper into self-discovery. I want to take just a second. Can you explain what alopecia is?
Yeah. So alopecia itself is just widely known as hair loss. There are specific types. There's three specific types. There's alopecia areata, which is just patchy spots.
Mm-hmm.
And then there is alopecia totalis, which is all just on your head, complete bald, no hair on your head, but still have hair on your body. And then there's universalis, which all arm hair, leg hair, eyebrows, eyelashes, hair on your head, all hair.
Okay, and you are universalis, correct?
I've kind of trickled in all of them.
Yes.
Obviously, it's a progression with each type of alopecia. So I did progress throughout all of them. And then most recently, I guess I wouldn't really, I'm universalis, but patchy in over my entire body. So
Okay.
I have, arm hair that grows here and there. Um, Most recently, now I have armpit hair. Sometimes that falls out, sometimes it doesn't grow. And then obviously patchy on my head.
Okay. All right. So as y'all know, we do video and audio. So I'm going to, for those that are just listening on audio, and I'll finish reading your bio in a minute. For those who can't see you, okay, I just stated you're no longer wearing a wig. Okay, and we're going to get into more of this in a minute, that your hair has really started to grow. And you and I have been working together. I just looked 10 months now. Okay, so this process, we're going to go into this also. This process has really started happening. How would you describe yourself to those who can't see you?
Oh man. Um, I would say it's an attempt at a mohawk. And there's patches everywhere in between from the back to I guess now I have a little bit of a receding hairline. So it's an attempt at a mohawk. That's what we're working towards. An
Okay,
intentional haircut.
nice.
Yeah.
All right, let's hold on. There's so much more to talk about. All right, back to your bio. Oh, I'm only getting started. It's been a fast, sometimes wild ride where I've had to hold on tightly, but each day I focus on making it better than the one before. I can't wait to see what unfolds as I continue rising in this newly awakened state. Beautiful. All right. Now we're going to take a little bit of a diversion, which I always, in the beginning, talk about because I like to, I have awakened people, not only spiritually awakened people on the show, but those who are awakened to the matrix and to the world. Can you tell us how that awareness came to you?
Yeah, I guess I would separate it in political awakeness and then also spiritual awaken.
Hmm.
Um, the political awaken started with COVID, as it does with every, or at least with a lot of
A lot of
the
people,
most
yeah.
recent. Yeah. Um, I was introduced to a video, Fall of the Cabal, by a friend, and COVID had just started. I actually had just ended a 5-year engagement, and moved out. So this was the first time I was living on my own. COVID started, and now this place that I'm living on my own, I'm stuck at, just me. And so Fall of the Cabal, watched that. And to be honest, I was actually thinking about this today. I don't really remember what the whole message was or what necessarily stuck. But from that point forward, I really just started paying attention. Um, and was often just labeled as a conspiracy theorist, so I didn't have many people to talk to about it, except the one friend that introduced me to Fall of the Cabal.
Yeah.
Um, and so from that point forward, really just looked or couldn't stop seeing all of the things. And then I would say over the last 10 months that you and I have been working together has really been finding myself spiritually as far as the awaken. So it's been a lovely 5 years.
Okay. And now that you found more of a tribe as well, and I'm very particular about the word tribe because it's again, we're in a world right now that there's such division. So using the word tribe not as also being a clique or being, but like minds as well, that you're, part of the community that mm, um, that I'm about, I guess, and knowing that I work with people that aren't so much awake in the world too, so that we're all good. Yet those that are awake, it's like, oh, come here, let's do this meeting together. And how about these people? And let's all come together. So knowing you now have a team on your side, essentially.
Absolutely. Yeah,
Yeah, that's
which
nice.
also, it allows you not to hide even your own thoughts. So that's been nice to just be able to talk it out, not have to just think it to yourself.
Yeah. Hey, and you were talking about too the Will Smith scenario. Can you go over that? That was really, really neat. I hadn't really thought about that.
Yeah, I actually was just looking up what year it was. I don't even know, but when it was during the Grammys, um, Chris Rock made mention of Jada Pinkett Smith looking like G.I. Jane, and ultimately she has alopecia. So once that whole situation kind of blew up, we all know Will Smith went and slapped Chris Rock, said, "Don't talk about my wife that way." And then from that point forward, it was like it gave her a platform to talk about alopecia, but it then led to medication, and that all of a sudden now there was medication to cure alopecia. And so it's also interesting just talking about medication with what alopecia is, and then even what I've tried over the years. A lot of that was during my childhood, and it was suggested by doctors to try certain things. That list of certain things started and ended with basically Rogaine, and Rogaine doesn't really help. So it was that was an interesting experience as a kid, rubbing Rogaine on your head to try and get your hair to grow. But with alopecia being an autoimmune disease, my understanding of it was always that, my immune system was overactive and it would attack my hair follicles. That was the doctor explanation that we were given. So any drug really, my thought would be that it would suppress my immune system. So I never really wanted to try anything,
Mhm.
but it was very interesting how on a huge public format they used this opportunity to kind of say, hey, here's alopecia. So alopecia was popular for about 6 minutes, and then it went away. But
And then there was medication, big
yeah,
pharma, chunk out
oh
some
yeah.
money. Yeah, I wonder if it was successful for people. Yeah. So when we first started working together, and it's really wonderful to me when people come and they're really serious about figuring themselves out and realizing my life is not all that great, and I would really like to commit to make it better. And you're one of those people. Can you, and I also, I want to jump ahead to this for a moment. My belief was that once you open yourself up from the life that you have had of major stress, your hair's just going to start to grow. And it has, I mean, I would say, okay, because the one thing when you started seeing me, it was like, Chandler, why don't you ditch the hat when you're here? So the big
Ooh,
thing was,
I was wearing a wig first.
oh,
Yeah,
did you come in a couple times with a wig?
yeah.
Okay. And then it
We,
was like, okay, just start dishing the hat. Like, I desire you to feel comfortable in here just being yourself. Okay. And at that time, you had a lot of patches on the back of your head. So since then, more hair, and you started to having to shave your legs and
mhm.
your armpits. And the beautiful thing that you've also made me recognize, which I would like to talk about some today, is like, and we've talked about this before, like when the wind blows, feeling your hair blow and the hair on your arm, like it allows you to have such feeling within the world, and being touched and having hair, and wondering through you or seeing what's that like not having it's like an extra sense essentially.
Hmm.
And now you are feeling, literally feel like your feelings are coming out. They're just, and hence I believe the hair growth. All right. Do you mind sharing with us your, when this happened, your time in middle school, high school? Yeah. Can you give us the full scenario?
Yeah. So patches started when I was two.
Mhm.
And at that time, my parents were getting divorced. And I was in daycare. Daycare had told my parents that they thought that I was pulling out my hair.
Okay. Do you
So
mind if I interrupt you for just a second? The interesting thing yesterday, you had just realized that with each moment where you experienced more hair loss, there was a moment, a hard moment in your life.
yes,
Like you could really pinpoint those. So at two, the divorce happened
right.
and the
And
hair
at two
started
years
happening.
old, that is just crazy how, even at 2 years old, your conscience really knows what's going on.
Yeah.
So yeah, so at 2 years old, started with spots, and uh, the spots didn't necessarily get worse until I believe I started school. And then starting school was really one of the big. Uh, Ultimately, I was bullied throughout school because I would have spots in the back or spots on the side, and it wasn't something that I could ever see. So a lot of the times, a mean kid at school would be telling me that I have a new spot and asking me why. And really, at that point, I didn't have an explanation. I didn't have really support on what alopecia was and what it could potentially mean for the rest of my life, which is crazy to think about now. But as school progressed, my mom was also in a relationship, a long-winded relationship that lasted about 5 years. And then when they split up was when my hair started falling out even more. And then a my mom had suggested that we get my hair cut short to try and hide the bald spots a little more. And when we did that, it kind of sped up the process. And at that point, I had ultimately lost all of my hair. And that was when discussion about, or before that, I'm sorry, before that was when discussion about a wig came into play.
Okay, and probably at this point, I'll some of the pictures that you shared for me,
Mhm.
I'll start posting them.
Yeah. So I think I was right around 10, 9, 10 when I got my first wig, which that was, 22 years ago. 22 years ago, wigs aren't what they used to be. So putting a wig on a small 10-year-old's head was pretty rough. It looked like a Lego piece just sitting on top. So that led to even more bullying, in
Oh,
school. And me not really knowing how to handle all of that. I think a lot of my own, I think that's where I started learning how to suppress my feelings. And then it just kept going from then on.
okay, and we're going to tread lightly or however you want to tread in terms of a lot of emotional um, things happening in your life, which also help trigger this. But I think one of the big things also was that it was never really talked about. You didn't have a voice to explain it. It was all about hiding.
Yes, definitely all about hiding. To a point where there was a period where I was wearing hats in school. Um, Even just hiding it with a hat was terrifying because the kids at recess would come up and either pull off my hat, or I wore a bandana, they'd come up behind and pull back the bandana. And it was just a constant state of fear, both with having to hide who I was and then having to face who I was. And a lot of the times, hiding who I was really won every battle. Uh, so yeah, it was definitely hard as a child without, really knowing what alopecia could do to self-esteem, or like I stated in the bio, my image. That was such a big concern of mine in the past.
All right, where was your mom within that?
Um, as far as, what do you mean?
Image and hiding and got to put this wig on
Yeah,
and
yeah, yes. So my mom actually sparked and led a lot of it. When I was younger, she was obviously the one, your mom does your hair uh, in the bathroom. So my mom would do my hair, but ultimately try and hide these spots. So that was also all I ever knew about alopecia was, oh, we got to hide the spots. And then as I grew up a little bit more, the suggestion to cut my hair short, which led to its own type of bullying. As a young 10-year-old, 9-year-old girl with short hair, there were a lot of comments made, like asking myself if I was a boy, or not accusing me of being a boy, but referencing me as a boy. So that led to its own struggles to have to heal through. And then I remember one summer I was swimming with my cousins. We had a pool growing up. I was swimming with my cousins, and my mom had a friend over and asked if I wanted to look into wearing wigs. And at that point, again, 10 years old, I'm thinking a clown wig. So my first thought is a big red clown wig. And I immediately said no.
Okay.
And and then there was a lot of kind of persuasion on trying to get me to wear a wig, or at least go see what a wig might look like. Um, so that's ultimately what we set out to do. And back then, like I said, they weren't as accessible. So we would have to find places, actual wig shops, and go make a whole day out of it. My mom, my stepdad at the time, and myself would all go try on wigs. Um, and they weren't cheap either. So my mom at the time was paying maybe between 300 and 1,500 at any point for a new wig. Yeah, and I would only get one once a year. But I was also a very active kid. So I played softball year round from the time I was like 5. So that also came into play. Just the things that you don't think of when you're not experiencing it. But as a child, having had to think about all of these things constantly was, I think, something that really drug me down.
Yeah, go into thinking about things constantly so people can understand, especially if you're doing active sports and you have a wig on your head. And how did it stay down? What did you, because was there some of the hair could clamp onto it, or yeah, explain some of that.
Um, that was by the grace of God.
Okay.
There was nothing that I really did to keep it on. In high school, I actually I never wore my hair up because if you think about it, you can't really put a wig in a ponytail. And especially wigs back then that weren't as thin, they were a lot thicker than they make them now. So putting them in a ponytail was never really accessible. So I was always the girl that wore her hair down at softball. I was the third baseman that never had her hair up. Which that also, locker rooms. You're changing in locker rooms at that time going into high school. That was its own type of uh, time that I needed to hide yet again. I'd go into stalls to change just in case my hair came off when I, took off my shirt. Um, uh, bonfires as a kid or in high school, bonfires were a little stressful to go to because you have to prepare, the next 2 or 3 days, your hair is going to smell like a bonfire, or you have to wash it. And washing and drying a wig isn't really like washing and drying the hair on your head. You kind of have to let the wig dry itself off. So that was always I had to commit to at least 24 hours of my washing my wig and not being seen by anybody because I never left the house without my wig. So there is a lot of random things that I think that is one of the biggest stressors that stopped immediately when I stopped worrying about wearing a wig was all of the things that I had to worry about on a daily basis because of the wig.
Okay. And one of your concerns was also not wearing the wig, how people would look at you and how they would think. And there's the cancer piece of it. Are you, um, how, because I know this was a gradual process for you in stepping out and refresh my memory with this. It seems like the first couple of times you stepped out, the reactions were very positive and that just fueled you. And now you're at this point where if someone comes up to you, you can talk about it now.
Hmm.
All right. Can you talk about that a little bit?
Yeah. I would say one of the best experiences that I had during the kind of coming out without a wig phases has been I met this woman who does payment processing, and we met at a Starbucks in North Canton. Um,
This is
I was
Ohio.
Ohio, yes. And I was extremely nervous. First time I was ever meeting anybody professionally without
Okay.
hair on. And we had an awesome discussion. We were there for probably about an hour and a half, 2 hours, and at no point did I think about my hair. I was thinking about the discussion we were having, which was an interesting discussion because of my, at that point, recent job history. So to have left that conversation, realizing I did not think about what she was thinking about me and my hair the entire time was an amazing feeling. And then I actually met up with her maybe a week later, and she had created these little AI characters of ours, or she already had one of herself, so she created one of me, and I should have grabbed a picture of it, but it was just this little AI cartoon character with a little mohawk down the side or down the middle, which back then at that point I didn't have as much hair as I do now, so it was just really down the center, and it was just her embracing my hair, and it was great. So we didn't talk about alopecia that first meeting at all, and so when I saw that, I actually made mention. I was like, "That's really cool that you did that." And then I
Okay.
was like, here's what it is,
Oh my
alopecia.
gosh.
Yeah.
So you didn't even have to describe it, or it didn't even ask you questions. Do you mind showing the back of your head?
Yeah. Yeah. I'm gonna take this off the
All
spindle.
right, hang on just a minute. Okay. All right. Thank you. Have you, okay, and I love there was one story. You have a Jeep, and typically you would not take the size of it down because of, again, thinking about the wind and blowing your hair off. And now you've taken the sides off. Okay, and again, this is very recent. When did you start doing this? How many months ago, would you say?
Uh, uh, 6.
Okay, 6 months.
Yeah.
So this is still relatively new. So, uh,
It was
the,
right around March,
all
so it was
right.
still cold.
All right. Well, still cold here up in
I was wearing
Ohio.
hats. Yeah. Oh
Yeah,
yeah.
not in other parts of the world. What I remember you talking about taking your Jeep doors off and how freeing that was, and that kind of relating to the freedom of all of it, that you no longer have like this chain holding you back, and that like how often during the day would you think about your hair?
I probably could go on for days talking about what all I've thought about my hair. I actually was talking to a friend about how I don't buy zip ups
Oh my
because
gosh.
my wig would get like right here, the hair right here would get caught in the zipper, and it wouldn't even get caught. It might just, rub up against it, but that doing that enough times ultimately causes like the hair to like turn into coarse strings. So it would ruin the hair. So it was a lot of things like that that I also had to keep in mind, like the bonfires, the zipper hoodies, even sweating. Sweating, I realized was a big, I hated sweating when I wore my wig, but I sweated more when I wore the wig, obviously, because it's like you're wearing a winter cap all the time. So this past summer, actually wanting to sweat, wanting to get hot, not fearing being hot and sweaty, going out and doing something. I suppressed so much of who I could have been, I think, as a child. I was athletic in softball, but my aversion to try new sports was pretty high. I tried basketball, but if you really think about it, when you run and you have a hair or you have a wig, the hair's not going to flow like normal when you're running.
Oh my gosh, right.
Softball, I wore a helmet, so you couldn't really see what I looked like when I was running. Um, uh, but yeah.
So many considerations. Were you in a sense kind of living in fear?
Living in fear, hiding myself into almost entirely. I mean, there wasn't really a thing that I did or a decision that I made that didn't in one way or another take into consideration my wig, even friends, hanging out with friends, staying the night at friends' houses. it was very consuming. And then even into adulthood, relationships, um, both friendships and romantic relationships, having that discussion. If you want to go swimming with us, you want to go kayaking, kayaking, for instance, that would have been a thought. I probably would have been afraid that my hair got wet with the water that we were in, and that I would have to, worry about washing that out. So it was very encompassing of every decision I made.
Okay, and let me just highlight this if this is appropriate, and if I need to edit this out, you let me know, and I'll take a timestamp right now. So there is more, and we don't have to go into these details about uh, how hard your growing up was. Okay, there was some sexual abuse, if I may say that you encountered as well. So from my perspective and working with you, it's like this happened, and shoot, this happened to Chandler, and shoot, there's more, and then there's this. So you have experienced so much in your young life. Okay, and I was going into a direction with this, but suddenly it left me. So so the freedom in okay, here's what it was. When you first came to see me, can you tell me about when the drinking started for you and how you've changed so much of that as well, drinking and smoking, and how,
Yeah,
yeah, talk about that, please. I think that will be helpful for
absolutely.
so many people.
Um, so drinking started, I drank a little bit in high school with friends, at parents' houses, basements, anything you could get away with. Wasn't too crazy drinking. There were a couple times that probably drank way too much, and it's crazy to think at such a young age we had, access to alcohol that way, but um started early, and then at 21 was really, I mean, that kind of just opened up free range for drinking everywhere. I started dating an older man. And so that was a lot of what the beginning of our relationship was based off of, was going out to bars, getting drunk, hanging out, meeting people. While it was great fun, it did lead to excessive drinking. Also, I picked up smoking cigarettes at the time. And then as the years went on, I quit smoking, but got into the vaping. Still drinking very heavily. After my ex and I had split up, like I said, I was living alone. COVID started.
Okay, can I
I,
can I ask you a question with that
yeah,
X? How did you approach the alopecia component? Was that early on? Like, yeah, do you like, is this something early on you discuss, or how? Okay, we're gonna divide these two
yeah,
things up.
yeah, 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 yeah. So, it's always like a time frame. So, okay, I know I need to tell my partner this, or um, and that relationship actually started really quickly. So
Mhm.
we met in July and I moved in October. So the
Oh,
conversation about alopecia happened rather quickly. Um, he was in the beginning very supportive. Um, very much so. A lot of the times, this conversation did draw me and whoever I was having this conversation with closer.
mhm.
Because if you think about it, you're at a
Yeah,
stage in the relationship and the friendship where, okay, we're going to move on to the next step. I am letting you in. Here's this big part of
yeah,
me.
vulnerable.
Yeah.
Like, what's gonna
So,
happen?
right. So, with him, I don't, I don't really remember any specifics. So I think it just kind of happened as it was. But as the relationship kind of deteriorated, it was also a point of, let's upset Chandler. What's the easiest way to do it?
Oh
Let's
man.
attack the hair. Yeah. So
Oh,
that there were a lot of comments, a lot of mean things said and arguments that still stay with me, but ultimately just gotta not believe in them. Keep going.
Okay, and we'll get back to this, but for those who can't see Chandler, I love you describe it as an intentional haircut. It's still okay, how like it's when you look at it, like it's still like, oh, did she do that on purpose, or is there something like it's how how would you describe it?
It's not, I don't know, you can't, it looks like a haircut, but at the same time, you're like, why? It's almost as if a haircut was like set back a little more on someone's head. And that's basically what's going on, which as I'm, going through the spiritual growth and everything, I'm interested to see what really is like around this outer edge that I'm not healing yet, that really needs to be healed with like the sides and such.
Yes. Okay, so it's not a normal cut. It's very like like
Doing with
many
what is.
okay. Yeah, this is a really interesting like I'm trying to find delicate words and true words. It's a little harsh, would you say? Okay, so when someone meets you for the first time, why is your haircut harsh? And what's so great about now is there's so many different haircuts too. Like it's very oh, she did that. You could it could be seen as doing it on purpose.
Hmm.
Even though it's a little radical, a little different. Okay. So I just want to put it out there that you have such guts going out into the world, knowing it's not fully grown yet. It hasn't fully healed itself yet you're going, this is my process. I feel good about this process and I feel good about this truth, ditching this wig that is not me. Okay. Thank you for that. All right, let's go. Let's go back into to the drinking.
A little rewind back
Yeah.
to that I did want to make mention too that even coming out into the world without the wig was a gradual process.
Mhm.
There was a hat that I wore all the time. I actually got an attachment to a specific hat that I always wore. And a lot of what I did too was even just practicing not wearing my hat on bike rides around the neighborhood where, I'm not in direct contact with anybody, but I'm out and about. I'm really experiencing what it's like without hair, without a hat, or without a wig, sorry, without a hat, and embracing what I actually have myself, as far as hair goes. So yes, that was interesting, but great to experience slowly but steady. Always keeping that in mind. Okay, so
Right.
the drinking. Um, the drinking really was used to suppress everything that I was feeling. And all of that was from, like you said, I did have a pretty harsh childhood. I guess harsh childhood.
Mhm.
Um, both of my parents were in multiple relationships, multiple marriages, uh, my mom specifically four in the time that I was just, under her care, and my dad, two himself. So there was a lot of moving parts constantly in my childhood, and there was never really any solid ground of comfort, care, affection. No one really ever showed me actual feelings. So as I've healed through that, that is one really big, uh, I guess, thing that I've thought of is how much more I'm feeling. And with the drinking, I was spending $20 a day on White Claw, so it was $100 a week. And, drinking to hide everything as soon as I would get off work, grab a six pack, go home, drink it, go to sleep,
So
and
twenty
then do
dollars a
it all
day
over.
would be like 140 a week.
Oh, yeah. Uh,
Okay.
well, there
Not drinking
were
the
there
full
were
pack. Okay.
probably,
All
yeah,
right. So
yeah.
around there. All right. That's a lot of money.
Yeah. a lot of money. And I knew exactly what I was like. I knew what it was doing. My dad also suffered from alcoholism. He actually um, he was in prison up until the beginning of this year for a drunk driving accident back in 2022. So it's also alcoholism runs deep in my family. Alcoholism, how we want to call it. And really just realizing what I was doing to myself, what I was trying to mask, what I was trying to not really feel was ultimately driven by how much alcohol I drank. And I have Bailey, who was actually on your podcast. I was working with Bailey at the time, and I looked at Bailey and I think I was hungover. We were working together, and I said, I think I'm going to take the $100 I spend in alcohol and go to therapy. And she was like, why don't you go see Eden? And I was like, you're a genius. Yes. And that I think was the start of really releasing the addictions because it wasn't just, alcohol. I smoked weed a little bit and I also was still vaping. So definite
Trifecta.
connection with that vape, that nicotine.
Yeah.
Yeah. And that was honestly the vape was the one thing that I didn't think I was going to be able to stop first, but that one we tackled right off the bat. And then the drinking, I stopped drinking, which I'm sure anyone who's ever tried to stop drinking before, especially if you're doing it because you know you need to, it does become very hard to stay with a circle of friends and people that you have been with for a while because
Yeah.
they have to understand why you're doing it. And that I think was really hard, but it helps you come to a lot of realizations a lot faster. So I did stop drinking, really start realizing, what I wanted to do. That was also the time I started meditating, um, which was great. But yeah, here we are.
Here we are. And because I'm working with a lot of people right now who are really changing their mindset towards alcohol and a lot that have decided not to drink anymore. And part of what I feel the evil, the is that's why one of the reasons it's so accessible, again, spirits, that it really masks your true self. And as you really start to separate and look at it, like it's in everything. It's in parties, graduations. It's so tied to celebration, to happiness, when it is the exact opposite of that.
Hmm.
And I personally love being around people who can be vibrant and have fun without that uh, hang up that I want to call it a tool. It's not a tool that don't need that because as I feel that we're going through this awakening as well, you don't like the more authentic you feel and the more good you feel about yourself, the more certain vices, things you just do not want in your body around your person, and people who also emulate that high vibration, that love within themselves. I mean, that's what you in this process also want to bring up in terms of relationships. You have changed.
Hmm.
What would you say, 90%, 80% of your relationships?
I'd go higher, 90%. Yeah.
Okay, what's that process been like for you? Because I also feel that the awakening process is that the great awakening, and as well as the spiritual awakening, really seeing the truth in the people who love you. I'm doing air quotes for those who can't see. And that was a process for you, and getting stronger and stronger in doing that. What was that like?
Um, it was something that I think really drew me into realizing what I really believed in. It started with a friendship that I've had for 15 years. And she was doing things that I didn't obviously agree with, but at no point had I ever made mention why I didn't agree with the things that she was doing or anything. And it all came to a head, and I ultimately just cut the relationship off. And that was the first time I had ever done that.
Oh,
And while it hurt, it got easier a lot faster than I thought it would. So really not having that constant reminder or constant, I'm going to use the word ick. I use that word a lot, but
yeah.
the constant just ick in the things that they were bringing to my life. Um, so starting with that friendship and then just kind of expanding on to all of my other relationships, really asking myself, why am I in this type of relationship, this type of friendship? Um, and I do have a group of friends from high school that I still talk to. And those, the friendships that I feel like really knew me at my core, in high school, they've almost watched me grow through this, which has been great. So some of the relationships that I am keeping really do continue to add that value and reminder of all of the growth that I've done. And then there's the harder relationships, like my dad and I's relationship. That's been quite the experience over the last few years, especially with his, short stint in prison. That kind of led to more of our discussion about what I've hid my entire life. We were kind of forced into having that conversation, him going into prison. And fast forward a year and a half later, and we are talking about things that actually matter, things that, are real. Um, and so I'm having had him as my father and his alcoholism throughout all of those years. I think a lot of my childhood I blamed on him, and coming to that realization after sobering up, after, really diving into myself and really testing all of the relationships I had around me, I ultimately came to the conclusion that my mom was actually a really big component into my suppression of feelings as a kid. Um, and that relationship is something that, I'm still working on, still trying to really figure out,
It's a big
work
one.
through. It's a
Mhm.
really big one. Especially, talking here on here about alopecia, it's a lot of me needs to let go of the anger I feel for her really convincing me to hide who I am, is how I look at it from my perspective. Um, I really feel like the constant, hiding of the bald spots, hiding of the head entirely, putting on the wig, and then multitude of other things throughout my childhood with her relationships that have really hidden who I am. So I think really taking off the wig, stepping into who I actually am, realizing who I am has been such an experience, such a lovely 6 months. And I can't even imagine where it's going to go from here.
So great. And to let folks know what is so wonderful about this is because we are in the speeding up process of the Great Awakening, just watching what has happened to Chandler and this radical, I would say, change in you over just a couple months, that's how it can happen to folks. If you are really ready to step into yourself, to step into love, to step into figuring out who you are, stepping into freedom, yeah, you can really experience some, not to say it's easy. Was it easy or is it easy?
Not easy at all.
Is it worth
You
it?
gotta want to do the hard thing. Oh yeah,
Yeah. Okay, but it's
definitely
worth
worth.
it. All right, I have a couple questions for you. Do you feel beautiful?
I feel beautiful inside. I'm working on feeling beautiful outside, but I definitely feel like who I am as a person and what I have to offer has shown through now that I
Yeah.
am not hiding a very big part of me. So yeah, to be honest, I'm working on the outside, but if nothing else, my inside I know is pretty beautiful.
Wow, it is pretty beautiful. And I will add for those who can't see Chandler, she is beautiful. She's got these beautiful dimples and these beautiful nails. And she's
Thank you.
just, yeah, I'm astounding to see when you really start to feel that outwardly. I'm really excited for that. And let's then state, who are you? Who are you now? What have you discovered?
This is such a hard question to ask. Who am I?
Yeah, it's all right.
Oh, I am wholeheartedly someone who just cares
Yeah.
about everyone around me. Um, I love feeling love. I love giving love. Um, and I think I'm really trying to find who I am more in this spiritual awakening than I ever have before. And that I think is the best part, is really just wanting to figure out who it is that Chandler is.
Awesome.
Just be
In terms
practice.
of the alopecia community, because you told me about, when you were younger, you would go to conferences and y'all would all have on t-shirts. In terms of giving folks hope, what would you say the percentage is? And do you know in the States of people who have this challenge? What is the
I have honestly no clue. I feel like it's more and more widely seen. But that could just be me having it, and I notice it more on other individuals than not. But yeah,
so when you go to conferences, like how many, I know you went as a child to some, like how many other kids were there?
there were, I would say, at least 300
Okay.
kids. Yeah,
Okay.
and
And
all different age groups,
was this just from one state or all over the country?
all over the country.
Okay.
Mhm.
So if someone with, let's say, alopecia is listening or watching you today and just intrigued with your process and intrigued that you you're growing hair now, I mean, what would you tell them?
I would say do the hard thing. Anything that, you're feeling, I really do think that a lot of my issue was not feeling ever before. And a lot of that was because I didn't want to face what feelings that could be. And a lot of that was sadness. Um, but ultimately, each day I just did whatever the hard thing was, whether it was taking, not wearing my hair to the grocery store. It is really just, I'm a little lost on that one.
Okay, let me see if I can assist with that. So doing the hard thing, are you stating doing the hard thing to not wearing a hair piece or a
Hmm.
wig like that, or just it doesn't have to be that specifically. It could be using your voice at a time where you might not have used your voice. Or are you saying, "Hey, let's take the wigs off"? What yeah, where are you
I
within
mean,
that?
so really, really trying to tackle what hurts the most and
Okay.
why. Um, I think that that's where I started, is my relationships hurt the most. And starting with those really opened up my heart, honestly. And so for me, alopecia was definitely a suppression of feelings, but I
Mhm.
would be interested to even just be the ears of someone else who has alopecia, who may have, had a completely different childhood or a completely different reason why alopecia started. Um, but I think that there's always a root. I think that, I've heard over the years, I've heard of different causes of alopecia. And I went to school with a girl whose mom got extremely sick by a virus. And then after she was in her 40s, and she, um, after that sickness, all of her hair fell out and never grew back again. So it was brought on by God knows what. There's many different options that could have happened. So I think that it's ultimately just a reminder that you've got more to work on. You've got something to work on. You've got something to live for. And now it's kind of like an exciting process. Like, what am I going to heal next? And where's the hair going to grow from?
Is that really is a beautiful, like everybody's got indicators of their healing and doing. Yours is your hair. That
Yeah.
the more you heal, the more it starts growing. And it's just an amazing story. And I deal with, challenges that Western medicine says, oh, if you have this, you're always going to have it. But when you discover, I feel the root of what that challenge is, you can heal so much. And none of it's logical, yet it is
Mhm.
logical. I mean, this completely makes sense. Yet to most people, or to a lot of people, they'd be like, well, it's just coincidence.
Mhm. And that's
No.
also the hard thing. Everybody, has asked, what are you doing differently? Feeling, doing a lot of feeling.
That's so, I love. Okay, I'm going to move away from the mic for a moment. I'm going to laugh. That is so wonderful and so honest. All right, for the
Yeah.
practice, do you feel that that was good, or would you like to do something else to add to that?
I mean, I guess what I mean by doing the difficult thing is trying to meet the newest version of yourself because while it's difficult, who you are when you're faced with this difficult thing is going to be a new version of yourself you've never met before. So when I say do the hard thing, just keep pushing forward. It's gonna hurt now, but whether it hurts now or it hurts later, go for it.
Feeling, Chandler, feeling.
Tons of
I
feeling.
Tons of feelings. Hey, you are incredibly articulate. That was one of the reasons I wanted to have you on today because you're so good at explaining not only what happened to you, but where you are now and where things are going. So I knew you would be so good at representing this community. Okay, is it cool if I say that?
Oh yeah.
Okay, so there is a community. Were you
Yeah.
involved in a Facebook community as well? And
Yeah, I was just about to say there's tons of Facebook groups, local, even just, national, that it I would love if this could touch somebody, and
yeah,
at any point anyone wants to reach out and discuss. It's a hard thing, Your hair makes a lot of who you are, that
it sure
first
does.
impression. And uh, I really, as I've, dove in deeper into who I am, kind of realized how beautiful people, these alopecia people are. Like you can go to these pages and everybody's just beautiful because everybody's smiling, everybody's happy. Now we just need to heal.
And you know what? I will add to that when I had this cancer event and had two brain surgeries. And the first one, they methodically could go through and make patches and shave part of my head. But the second one was emergency. So it was just like, all right, we're just going to shave. And so that really, and I guess beautifully, I guess that's the way to say it. I have so much hair that we could do comb overs and make it work, even though it was just, underneath my neck. I mean, you could put a whole hand there and there was nothing there. Yet it really did, in that experience, really helped me realize again how your hair, like when you put your face forward, you're not only putting your face forward, but the hair comes with it. And to have not have that, or to have it not be all there, or yeah, it's a friggin' big deal. And you're
Yeah.
expected. I mean, that's one of the things that you kind of don't think about someone not having hair. And the hairdresser that I went to, she was a specialist in helping people that had chemo or, and suddenly I was like, oh my gosh, there are people out there that do that. And I'm like, well, of course there are people out there that do that. Like this whole thing that I didn't quite realize at the time. And then suddenly I was like, oh yeah. All right. Is there anything else we should say? Are we done here, Chandler?
I think we might be done here for
I
now.
think so too. All right. And let me add, you also have an incredible smile, which that is going to, and just the way you present yourself, like that is the first thing that you see, that versus that. And I think you're going to be noticing that more and more as you start feeling more beautiful about yourself. All right, everybody. Ooh, yeah.
Thank you.
You're welcome. Thank you again. All right, y'all. See you next week. Say bye, Chandler.
Bye, guys.
Yeehaw. Y'all, find me on Facebook, Instagram, LinkedIn, Truth Social, as well as Rumble, BitChute, YouTube, plus a plethora of other audio directories like Apple Podcasts and Spotify. So like, subscribe, do it all. See ya.